Hello, once again, everybody. Today I'm here to talk to you about spiritual warfare, how my depression was influenced by the occult. I do have a disclaimer. I take medications for bipolar disorder, I take their potions. I'm speaking from a place of wellness and I'm just reflecting on my past. If you are having a mental health crisis, please get help. If you can't afford to get help, if you're in the United States, there is a place called Community Mental Health, and pretty much every county in your state will have one, and they only accept Medicaid. And if you don't have Medicaid, you can apply for a block grant. That's what I had to do about 15 years ago. Um, and it paid for all my services, all my medications, everything. So that is just a disclaimer. So, what is spiritual warfare? I'm going to quote from Wikipedia. I'm not in college right now, so I can actually do that. So, according to Wikipedia, spiritual warfare is the Christian concept of fighting against the work of preternatural evil forces. It's based on the biblical belief that evil spirits or demons that are said to intervene in human affairs in various ways. What is preternatural? I had to look that up. Um, in spiritual warfare, it would be psychics, evil spirits, witchcraft. And I know some people aren't going to like that because I have friends who are witches, and all of my friends and family all go to psychics. I have too. Um, so the story, I'm going to divide it into two parts. The first part's going to be more about my depression that I had throughout the years and how the occult influenced my depression. So I used to have a really low self esteem. It's how I was raised. We weren't raised to feel good about ourselves. And I think I don't get too mad at my parents for that now because I know that was just kind of a generational thing. Um, and I know a lot of us experience the same thing. And that's just like society too. We're not really taught to love ourselves. Um, I felt exceptionally expendable. I got into drugs. I fell into a bad crowd. I'll talk more on that later. I got really skinny because I didn't feel like I deserved food. I had an eating disorder. I became actually really phobic of food, thinking I would be dirty by eating certain foods. And I went to a holistic health school to try to learn more about eating healthy, and I ended up getting so into it, almost fanatical, that I ended up eating nothing because I was afraid of everything. I'm sure that had something to do with my undiagnosed bipolar. But we have something inside of ourselves called a critical inner voice. It's that voice that tells you that you're bad, you're fat, nobody loves you, you're crazy. When you're extremely, extremely depressed, that voice gets really loud. It's almost demonic, and it starts to control your life. I also became around the age of 25 through 27, I became extremely paranoid that people could read my thoughts. That is a symptom of bipolar disorder, but I wasn't diagnosed yet, so I didn't know that. And for some odd reason, I started visiting psychics, people who could actually supposedly read my thoughts. I used to go to this little spirit shop in my town. It was a really cute little spirit shop. They sold incense, sage, tarot cards, books. The lady who worked there kind of talked like this. She was really very soothing, had a very soothing voice. Just the sweetest lady ever. She loved cats. There were cats that walked around the store. But I bought a book there called The Lesser Key of Solomon. Now, this is a 17th century book of demonology and black magic spells. This part, it's in different parts. I had the Goetia part. And just an interesting side fact, if you've ever heard of Pippi Longstocking, I have no idea if these two things are related, but Pippi Longstocking had superpowers. And at the end of the Goetia, there is a demon named Pippi. Um, I don't really trust a lot of children's television or movies or books or anything. A lot of them are geared towards magic to get little girls into the occult. So there is a possibility that the two are related. I've looked it up, and the writer claims that Pippi was named after her daughter. Her daughter named her Pippi or something. Um, How much truth there is to that, who knows? Because the devil is deceptive. So the lady who owned, back to the shop. The lady who owned the shop was always giving my son rocks and crystals. And however, I was starting to break down mentally. I felt demonic. I felt bad. If you've ever had depression, you start to think that you're bad. There was this one lady in particular who worked there, who had her hair dyed black, and she wore kind of like gothic clothes. I felt like she was picking up on my critical inner voice. I felt very judged. She treated me sort of strangely, sort of suspiciously, and it really bothered me. And I quit going in there for a long time because I felt like I was bad. And looking back on it in retrospect, I really needed help, and nobody was helping me. Nobody helped me through that depression but myself. But I can talk about that in another video if you want. I went to another psychic there during a festival. I was wearing this, like, I don't know if skimpy is the right word. I was just wearing this nice sundress, and it was strappy and sort of short, and it was a hot day, and I felt pretty good about myself. But I was tired of being a single mom. She did this thing where we sat in this room, and I paid $50 for this, by the way. Psychics are not cheap. They're like, even 15 years ago they were $15, so I can't even imagine what they are now. Are the psychics inflating their prices too? I don't know, because I haven't been to one lately. But she took me in this room, and there was this wallpaper with all these designs on it, and I put my hand in hers like this, and her hands were like this, and we joined hands, and I let her feel my energy, and I swear I saw like the things on the wall kind of like pop out. It was really weird, and I felt like she had read my mind. And she made a comment about how I was looking for a man in my life, which was true, but looking back on it, I think she was kind of like mocking me. I really do believe that. I think that it's because I was wearing that dress. It was kind of like old ladies mocking the young ladies, and it wasn't very nice. So I've had a couple of bad experiences with psychics. I think the lady who owned the shop was friendly. She used to shortchange me though. I've never admitted that to anybody, but she did shortchange me a couple of times. So I don't know. Stay away from psychics. In the later years, depression kind of looks like loss of interest in everything. Like, I stopped seeing color. I stopped being interested. I like to paint my house. I like to wear different colors, and a lot of times I wear my makeup, especially my eyeshadow, like just popping with color. And I just kind of lost interest in all that stuff. Also, my house got really filthy, and I didn't see it. You just don't see it. So if you ever see somebody with a really filthy house, you might want to say something like, "Hey, are you okay? It's not right, and it's not okay. There's something wrong with them if they're living in filth. They're not happy people." I would stare into space for hours and hours and hours. Like, I'd go sit in my car, just so I'd say I was gonna go run an errand or something, and I would just sit in my car and stare into space for hours, because with nothing going on in my head. It was like, I don't know what they call that. I don't know if catatonic's the right word, but and then I would eat too much food. I got up to like 226 pounds, I think. This was just like last year when I was having a depressive episode. Or even the opposite. In the past, like when I was 19, like I said, I got too skinny. Almost to the point of anorexia, maybe. I did go to the doctor for that, but she didn't think that it was really that serious at the time. My therapist thought it was serious, but um, so I've kind of gone on both ends. I've gone from being really, really skinny to being really, really heavy. And right now I'm just kind of in the middle. I cut sugar from my diet, and I've been working with my doctor, and he's been helping me out a lot, and which is what you should do. You should consult your doctor anytime you have a weight issue and you want to make changes. I ended up with diabetes type 2, and that was kind of a turning point for me. I'm just like, okay, I need to do something about my health now. Not just my mental health, but my physical health. And I'm doing really good. I'd like to lose about 20 more pounds, but I'm taking it easy. The thing with me is that my depression always results to psychosis. And this has been on medication and not on medication. I've lived with psychosis so many times throughout the years before it was even diagnosed. Like, I didn't know what it was 20 years ago, but I've had it like for years and years. Okay, so if you know me personally and you're watching this video and you worked with me at Applebee's, I used to talk about Mr. Ames all the time. I used to disassociate a lot, and it was kind of disassociating is sort of like not being able to think for yourself. You have to think to something and it thinks back to you. It's really weird. So I would talk to Mr. Ames, and I asked a psychic about who Mr. Ames was, and she told me that he was my guide. I don't know if that's true or not, but in more recent times, Mr. Ames actually manifested himself into a ghostly person that would stand behind me and stare at me. Yes, I take an antipsychotic for that. So you tell a psychic that there's a ghostly figure watching you, they'll be like, oh, that's your guide. You tell a psychiatrist that, they just kind of roll their eyes. They've heard it all. They don't care. They're just like, take this pill. So I don't really know what Mr. Ames is. I don't know if he's a demon. Well, let me back up. If you watched my other videos, spirits and things, the devil masquerades as an angel of light. So the fact that Mr. Ames like shows up when things aren't right kind of makes me think that maybe he's a demon. I hate to say that, but because I used to make jokes about him, and I even used to sign my name, Katie and Mr. Ames, and it just happened to be that with my mental illness, he manifested himself into something, and I don't know if it's good or bad. I'm assuming it's bad. I've also had alcohol-induced psychosis when I was 27. Before I took medications, like I absolutely refused to take their drugs. I hit the bottle really bad. I was drinking like a fifth of vodka a day and spending hundreds and hundreds, like spending my rent money on alcohol. And I wasn't going to the bars. I was sitting at home drinking bottles of alcohol. I had to go to rehab to detox. It was so bad. And that's another thing I actually got paid for. If you go to community mental health and you can't afford rehab, they might be able to help you pay for it with a block grant. There's no shame for getting help. A lot of times, if you're drinking that heavily, you can't stop on your own. I don't care what your religion is or what your faith is. Stopping alcohol when you're drinking that heavily is actually very dangerous, and you very well may need to go to rehab. Well, when I was in rehab, I saw an alien. Okay, so I was laying in bed detoxing, and I looked over, and there was this little green man like you see on TV, and he was like, no one will believe you because of where you are. And it was so scary. I had to go sit in the nurse's office, and they had to make sure I was okay. Well, it wasn't just me. I'm not the only one who saw him. The next night, there was this girl in the detox room, and she was over by the window, just right where my bed was, and she was like talking to these demons, and they were talking back to her, and it was so bad. I went and got the nurse. I was like, this girl is like talking to spirits or something. They sent her to the hospital, to the psych ward, because they didn't know what to do. Rehab's not is not a psych ward. They're just a place to detox. So all the ladies and all the residents were so scared of what had happened to the two of us. They stood outside the door and prayed for us, and everybody was just absolutely terrified. But I think the thing was real. I think that they prey on you when you're down, and that's alcohol-induced psychosis. And I was sober for 7 years, and then I kind of got to the point where I do drink occasionally, just not very often, and I no longer have a problem with alcohol. So here's a Bible verse, because I love those. In 1 Peter 5:8, it says, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour." And that's literally what happened to me. This is going to be kind of the end of part 1. I just have a couple of things to add from the Bible about depression. Jesus Christ actually suffered from depression, and in Mark 14:34 through 36, it is described as this: "Then he said to them, My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch. He went a little farther and fell to the ground, that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him." And I can relate to that. You know, when you're like really depressed, you just like, the time goes so slow. It is like, I remember the time just going so slow. And it's so lonely. And, you know, he knew he was about to die, and I can't even imagine what he was going through. Another person in the Bible who had depression was Elijah, the prophet. So 1 Kings 19:4, "But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a broom tree. And he asked that he might die, saying, It is enough now, O Lord. Take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers." I'm not sure what he's talking about when he talks about his fathers. I'm assuming they did something bad. But I can relate to that too. I've prayed for death before, and that's no way to live, guys. So I'm going to conclude part 2 soon. And it's going to be more about spiritual warfare and how we can fight it. But this was just kind of a background into my depression, because I talked about mania in my other videos, and depression has been a big part of my life, and I'm glad that I'm in a place now where I can speak and reflect on it from a place of wellness. And the mental health system is flawed, but I think that it's good for at least getting you stable. I think all of their therapies and stuff are absolute bullshit. But they can kind of help you get your brain on track, and I can sit and reflect on these things now. So I'll leave you with that. If you have anything to add or anything you want to talk about, just let me know in the comments. I will see you soon. Bye.